Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock.
My name is Danny.
And we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Times I might eat too much. No worry about my weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet, cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Home Dad Chat. Danny and I figured we'd finally hit record and start talking for a few minutes before we bring in our special guest for the night. Yeah, that's right. We have a guest tonight. Oh, are you so excited, Danny?
I don't like share my time with you, Brock. I'm just going to be, I'm actually pretty excited because of who we've got coming on and because of his, we talked about it earlier, about how many irons he has in the fire and all the things that he knows and things that he's done. And I'm really, having ADHD, I definitely love having somebody I can talk to about 50 different subjects, right. And he's really an authority on someone. I would call him an authority. Maybe he wouldn't, but I would call him an authority on so many things that he's done. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. Yeah.
I definitely am. So, and two, on top of that, he is a OG stay-at-home dad. Yep. I definitely want to pick his brain about like life back then and kind of how he transitioned into what he's doing now, because like I think a lot of us have that where like, what do we do like when the kids get older? I saw where I think it was somebody was asking that, like, what do I do? How do I move out of this after 17, after 17 years or whatever, if you've had like one kid, which, typically if you have more than one, it's going to translate to more years. But how do you move into something else? How do you explain that to people? And we've talked about that a little bit on the show in the past, but it's always kind of fun to hear other people's journeys on that. So I'm excited to pick his brain about that.
Yeah. And people that have already done it, as opposed to you and I just kind of giving, some conjecture to what would I probably do? Would I do that? Well, I don't know, really. When we get there, we'll figure it out. And he's already been there and done that. So yeah, definitely. I think it'd be good to talk to him about it.
Yeah. So we'll be bringing on our special guest here in just a moment, and we'll be back with that and have a fun conversation with them. So one moment and we'll be right back. Become a member of the National At-Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support. Connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate, and you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world. By advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, if you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Tonight we have a very special guest. We are honored to have David Stanley with us. And David has been around the scene of blogging and writing and all kinds of different things. I had the privilege of meeting him at Dad 2.0 years ago and also getting to hear him speak. And he also presented virtually for us this past year for Home Dad Con. And I wanted to reach out. He was also he just recently did a webinar with Matt Strain as well. So you can find that on the YouTube channel. But we're wanting to have him on tonight, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of fun stuff. Mainly, David is an OG stay-at-home dad, and so we're gonna pick his brain a little bit about that and just other parts
Mhm.
of his life as well. So, David, welcome to the show.
Hey, I am so happy to be here. And I want to point out occasionally as I sip a beverage here that this is lemonade. That's all it is. I want everybody to know that I may be the first guest in the history of this show, except for a couple guys who, are off alcohol for all of their reasons that just drinking lemonade.
It's all good, man. I cannot say that is what's in my cup tonight.
I think you're the first for lemonade. I've only
Yeah.
had water, but that's lemonade sounds really good right now, actually.
Yeah. It was 57 here in Flint this afternoon, and 57 after snow for the last 4 days. It was time to break out the lemonade, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely. No, yeah, there's as soon as the sun peeks out and starts warming things up, get them daisies popping, it's time for lemonade.
That's right.
Well, cool. I mean,
Yeah, that
So-
sounds great, you guys.
you are a man of many talents, David. Honestly, like Danny mentioned that you seem to have lots of irons in the fire, as it would be said. And honestly, like before we get into all of the irons that you have in the fire, I know that one of the big things that we've talked about in the past, and you've posted a few times, is the fact that you were a stay-at-home dad before it was cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My son is now 29, which is a whole interesting dynamic, because a lot of the guys that I associate with in all the different dad groups I'm in, whether it's here or Fathering Together, the dad bloggers group, a lot of the guys are not that much removed from the age that my son is now.
Right.
Which is kind of weird, but my son, he's single. He's not a dad. Doesn't appear to be on the horizon anytime too soon. He's got lots of stuff that he wants to do first. But when Aaron was born back in 92, my first wife, her name was Andy. Well, her name still is Andy. What the hell am I talking about? Not was Andy. She's terrific. We have a really good relationship. We figured out how to sort out our issues after we split up when he was about 5. I mean, no lie, the first couple of years were really sketchy. We were, but as he got a little bit older, 8, 9 years old, we figured out what it was that we liked about each other in the first place. And without really talking about it all that much, we ended up going there to the things. She's funny, she's smart, she's athletic. There's a lot of stuff that I found very attractive about her as a partner, and I still find attractive about her as a friend. And actually, her and her husband and my wife now, Kathy, and I, we hang out. I mean, they come over to the house for dinner, for holidays and stuff, and we have a great time. So we managed to make that work. But that's I guess probably a whole different set of stories. Back when Aaron was born, she was a sales rep for Eli Lilly. She's a registered pharmacist, and she'd been with Eli Lilly for, 7, 8 years, and was pretty high up the ladder. And she was making serious coin. And I was just coming off of a kind of a career as a semi-professional bicycle racer, and I managed a ski shop in the winter, and I was definitely not making a lot of coin. And it's just, when you crunch the numbers, it made sense based on the cost of childcare, which is always expensive in every era. This was 30 years ago. So that I was home almost all of the time with Aaron, which at first I didn't really understand how that was going to play out. And the more I did it, the more I knew that was like, even though it was not necessarily the choice I made at the time, because I was starting a new career, doing a lot of corporate financial service stuff. And I really liked it. I was calling on hospitals and businesses and all that kind of stuff to help them with their benefit plans. And so I kind of put that on the back burner, and I just started staying home with Aaron more and more, and finally just made it official. And we actually ended up coming out ahead financially, and way ahead, emotionally, for both the kid, and I think for Andy and for me. Absolutely. It was just, it was an astonishing thing in 1992 for a dad to be the one providing care almost all the time. And not to denigrate Andy as a mom, because she was a fine mom. Just that I was the one that was there, just like you guys are with your children today.
And were you and this was up in Flint, Michigan?
In Flint.
So what was the perception towards people in the public when you were out doing that? Because I mean, that had to
Yeah.
be completely
Yeah.
on the other side of the coin for
Right.
what most people are used to.
Yeah. And, Andy and I, before Aaron was born, we led a pretty corporate life. We went to, the galas that you were supposed to go to for hospitals and for all those sorts of things. I mean, I owned a tuxedo because we went out a lot. And it wasn't like we partied like crazy, but we were just, for the circles that we were traveling in and the corporations that I was selling to, you were expected to be a part of that corporate community.
Wow.
And Flint, for all the bad things that people like to say about Flint is an incredibly generous corporate community area. The Mott Foundation, Charles Mott, one of the founders, of course, of General Motors, he started that legacy right from the get-go, that businesses in Flint are good corporate citizens. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you want to succeed here in Flint in corporation, you will participate in the culture and the community. And so the folks just were kind of like freaked out, quite literally. They'd see me somewhere like, well, how come you're, doing this and this instead of, like, well, I'm staying home with my son. And like, what do you mean you're staying home with your son? I'm like, well, you change the diapers, you cook the meals, you vacuum the floors, you go to the grocery store, you make sure there's gas in the car the night before your wife is going on a 3-day sales trip, so she doesn't run out of gas on her way to the airport. All that stuff that that the at-home spouse does, I did. And there were no models. I just said, well, essentially it was, well, if this was the shoe was on the other foot, what would she be doing for me to help further her career and to take care of the house? And so I just did all those things. Yeah. And I got to tell you, there was some serious side eye that went on sometimes too, of course.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and too, like, I mean, the movie Mr. Mom would have been out for about a decade prior to that. So there would have been at least an introduction to the fact, but of course, like, I mean, it's a comedy, so it's got a little bit of that thrown into it, but still, like, the idea, it's one of those things where I'm sure it was still very, like, looked at, like you said, like, sort of side-eyed.
Right. I'll tell you one story in particular that, when you're doing the grocery shopping, you're expected to buy everything that is necessary, including feminine hygiene products. And hey, newsflash, women have periods like every month, like clockwork, if they're not pregnant. Yeah. Every 28 days, there needs to be some feminine hygiene products in the house, and more if you have daughters. We only had the one son, but at any rate, I figured out early on that what I would do is I'd go and I said, well, what do you need? And because I don't know much about feminine hygiene products. It's nothing I ever shop for. So what I got in the habit of doing was tearing off the end tab of the box.
Yep.
And that way she got exactly what she wanted, the right size, all this, all the stuff. And so you would go to the grocery store and you would put them up on the counter. And if it was a female cashier, she'd like, oh, honey, are you sure that's what your wife wants? I'm like, yeah, right here, you dumbass. This is how I know what she wants.
Right. No kidding. It's like, I actually planned this out. It's all good. Like, and then coming here all willy nilly.
I have college degrees. I have, I had corporate clients that were, like a hospital here in town that had 400 beds was one of my clients. I understand how to organize and, and get things done. And if it was a guy, it was actually worse, because the women actually most of the time thought it was pretty cool. Oh, this is interesting. All right, here you are with the kid. Okay. We get it. But the guy's like, oh, I guess who's not getting any for the next couple days. I'm like, dude, I'm buying fucking tampons. Lighten up, man.
Yeah, definitely. Well, some
of that is toilet paper for me, honestly. I mean, it's the same as toilet paper. I mean, I don't want to go to the counter and tell you why I'm buying toilet paper. I don't want to talk about poop. Come on.
Right.
So I don't want to talk about tampons either. Let's just buy the stuff and let's go. I'm not, I mean, I don't mind talking about it. If you want to talk about it, okay. Because I mean, I know a lot about poop, unfortunately.
Right.
And the same with periods. It's just something that's just a part of living,
Yeah, definitely. I want to backtrack just one little bit on something that you talked about, because there's a whole subgroup of stay-at-home dads who are cyclists that we have, like, throughout the National At-Home Dad Network. I'm one of them. Yeah. So you said you were a semi-pro cyclist back before you were stay-at-home dad. So that would have been like in the 80s, basically.
Right. Yeah. You're probably familiar with Greg LeMond.
Yeah.
Only American to win the Tour de France, and he's won it 3 times. Greg is, I think he's 2 years younger than me. I think he was born in 60 or 61. I was born in 58.
Okay.
And so I got into cycling back in the very late 70s. There was an indoor track that was traveling around 160 meters around. It was traveling around the country. And a buddy of mine who was a longtime bike racer said, "Hey, you're going to love this." I was a ski racer. And so anytime you can, go fast and pull G's, it's good, right? It's like being in a sports car under your own power. And,
Right.
and then I got okay at it. I mean, I was never going to race in Europe, but, I'd make a little prize money here and there. And in the winter, I was making enough money to, to pay the bills and whatnot. And, so yeah, I started racing, like, as we would say, full time. And I think summer 82.
Okay.
I graduated from college in 81. I spent a year as a ski coach up in Northern Michigan, came home, started winning a bunch of races on the track. And the next year, really, I guess 82, 83, hit it really hard and pretty much lived on the road for 9 months, 9 months out of the year with my teammates.
So were you road riding, or was it?
Yeah,
It was road riding. Okay.
Well,
I wasn't sure if it was that or if it was that track that what do you call it? Is it the
Velodrome.
Yeah,
Velodrome. I was much better on the velodrome by a long shot. Those bikes are, if you Google velodrome racing, you'll see the banking is 44 degrees. So if you stand at the bottom of a track and you put your arm out straight to your side, you touch the ground. So you got to go about 16, 17 miles an hour just to stay up on the banking.
Yeah, they're cool. They're a neat place.
It's really cool. And you're going, it's 250 meters around is the standard size. That the world standard. Some are a little smaller, some are a little bigger, but most of them are 250 meters, and that's where I was the best at. But the racing for that was kind of up and down, and we didn't at that time. We now have one of the finest facilities in the world in Detroit, which is an hour down the road. The Lexus sponsors this velodrome down there, in a really nice part of downtown Detroit. But I'm 63 and I still like to ride the track, but I'm, I might be racing this summer at Masters Nationals, which are down in Indianapolis,
cool.
which has a great home dad center, and the City Dads group is down there and stuff. But I was doing a lot of road racing too, only because that's what it was the most available, criteriums. So it'd be like 1 mile of a city circuit with like 4, maybe 6 turns in it. And, we, at that time we would do like a 2-hour race. Like they'd say, all right, we're going to race for 2 hours and ring the bell and then 5 laps extra. They'd say like 50-mile races or whatever.
We've got a couple of rides like that here in Cincinnati during the summer, which are a lot of fun to go to. Like they shut off some neighborhood streets and they have different courses, which are a lot of fun to go check out. And I've gone to those, which are a lot of fun. I had people always that are like, "Oh, are you going to get involved in it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's going to take a lot more training to be able to jump in on something like that for now." But well, sometime down the road, maybe, but we'll see.
There is a great race for years that I rode in every year for like 8 years, 9 years in a row in Cincinnati. There's train station, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That renovated train station. Or I think it's
it's the Cincinnati Museum Center. Yep.
Yeah. That used to be the race course. Like you would come up that hill, hang the left, go across in front of the museum, that long straightaway.
Yeah.
Hang another left. Yeah, that was the race.
Oh, that's cool.
It was always, of course, they would schedule it for the end of July when it was 104 degrees and 80 degrees humidity. But, that's bike racing too, is you got to be able to handle the heat.
Right. Well, the bike race I wanted to ask you about, if you've ever been to, because I was involved with it heavily when I was in college at Indiana University, is the Little 500. And I have one of the single speed bikes from the year before I left. Have you ever been to that race?
I have been to one of them, but my brush with greatness with the Little 500 is a bunch of friends of mine have raced in that. And one of my oldest and dearest friends in bike racing, a guy named Ken Nowakowski. Ken was the coach for many years at the Velodrome in Indianapolis and at Marion College. Okay. And so he was also, if I remember correctly, one of the coaches a bunch of years. They brought him brought him down, I guess, right? From Indy down to Bloomington.
Yeah, down to Bloomington.
Yeah, down to Bloomington. And they brought Kenny down to help the teams because there were always Indianapolis has always been a great place for bicycle racing.
Oh yeah,
in
definitely.
the whole state. And so they wanted a really good coach.
Was he involved in the movie Breaking Away at all?
Ken was not, but another friend of mine, a guy named Rick Denman, was involved. If I remember correctly, I think he was involved in. Oh no, Rick was involved. He invented the camera jig for Quicksilver.
Oh, okay.
And a couple other of those bicycle racing movies that came out after that. But I did know one of the guys, Eddie Van Gys, who was one of the evil guys in Breaking Away.
Yeah.
Eddie was like a star in U.S. domestic racing. And Gary, another one of those guys too, Gary Rybar, who has since transitioned and is still riding bikes. I think he passed away a couple of years ago. But anyway, Gary was like the first trans guy I knew that was riding bikes.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
I don't remember. I mean, that's his dead name. I lost contact with him. I don't know what name he had adopted after he transitioned.
Sure. Yeah. And that movie and the one that Kevin Costner was in, like, those are some of my favorite, like, bike movies. I forget that's something American Racer.
American Flyers.
Or American Flyers. That's what it is. Yeah. So another good one.
Rick, my friend, Rick Denman. Now I'm going to have to tag Rick when this goes live. Because he invented the camera mounts that were used in those movies. And his company is called Bikes Camera Action. Okay. And when you watch those movies, you'll see bicycle racing footage provided by, and that's Rick Denman, who's actually from Detroit originally.
That's awesome.
Cool. He was kind of a mentor to me when I first started. He's now doing a really cool thing. He travels up and down the Pacific Coast Highway and all through California, where he now lives, with a huge trailer behind him, and he picks up trash.
Okay.
Tons and tons. And he inspires other people as he rides through there to join him and to do like bicycle adopt a highway.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Definitely.
Yeah. Rick's a great guy.
So you've gotten into cycling, you become a stay-at-home dad. Do you do that for like the entire time of your son's, like, child life, like 17 years, 18 years old when he goes off to college?
No. Or no? Not much. When Andy and I split up, I think Aaron was 5 or 6. And then it really became a juggling match because that's when Andy and I split up. So my parents were really important as partial caregivers then, because I had decided the last couple of years that Andy and I worked together, I played soccer at Michigan State, and Andy had a son he's a little bit older than our son. He's like 42 or 43 now. He just finished 15 years as a helicopter pilot in the U.S. Army as a warrant officer. Go Army. Yeah. And he used to fly medevacs into hot zones and pick up our wounded and whatnot. And he was a pretty extraordinary guy himself. But I had been coaching like AYSO and some travel league stuff, and they approached me to be the cycling coach, or listen to me, I'm still 10 minutes ago, the soccer coach at one of the local high schools. And so now I've got to depend on my parents to help take care of Aaron, because I'm coaching this team because I can't take Aaron to practice all the time. And I'm also in grad school because as a result of being this high school soccer coach, I found out I really liked high school kids. And they listened to me. I know it sounds crazy, but I would say things and the kids would listen and they would respond appropriately. And we had winning teams and the kids got good grades. And I thought, and my mom actually said, maybe you should think about education. And I have a zoology degree and I've always been a science nerd. So I got a teaching certificate here in Michigan to teach a variety of high school sciences, actually middle school too. I'm certified from grades 7 through 12 in chemistry and physics and zoology and biology and physical science.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's all of them.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So I was in grad school and doing the teaching certificate at the same time here at University of Michigan in Flint. And so my parents, when all that was going on, were really, really important to help take care of Aaron as he was, to get him to school. And, he was also getting active in sports. And I was dating the woman who is now my wife. And so Kath was also really important in that because she was working a full-time job. She was the clinic coordinator. This is really cool, actually. I'm kind of getting off the dad thing, but she was the clinic coordinator at the University of Michigan Gender Reassignment Surgical Center.
Oh, wait, how long ago was that?
Let's see. I'm going to say maybe 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so 2000s.
Yeah, she was the clinic coordinator for the University of Michigan gender program for I want to say like 8 or 10 years. She's upstairs. I don't feel like shouting up to her, but that's pretty accurate.
It's all good.
And
Close enough.
so they were doing, they were doing some really extraordinary bottom surgery, which is really complicated stuff, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then of course, managing patient care for things like the psychological care that that goes along with anybody who's transitioning in either direction. It's very difficult. It's better today. So if you can imagine and it's still tough. So if you can imagine what it was like in 1995, it was madness. It really was. I mean, they were literally saving lives, because if they wouldn't have taken these people in and said, we can help you with this, you're not alone, this gender dysphoria, these identification issues, they're real. You're not crazy. Please do not take your own life. We can help you manage all of this. And so that was her job. She has a master's in psych mental health nursing.
Okay.
And so she managed the clinic and directed traffic, so to speak, for the surgeons and for the psychologists and the psychiatrists and all that. Very cool stuff. Very proud of what she was doing there.
Yeah.
And so
I'm proud just hearing the story, honestly.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Well, it is. And so all those folks, that's when I was in grad school. Like I said, this would have been around 99, I think, is when I started teaching, or 2000 when I started teaching full time. And by then, of course, Aaron was, 8-10 years old. He was in, late elementary school. And, at that stage of things, 10, 12 years old, you need to be there when they're home, but the rest of the time,
Right.
Yep.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of times that's one of the, I don't know what you call it, like questions or comments that people make all the time. Oh, your kids are all in school, or your kids in school all day long. What are you doing? Type of thing. And, I think it really just varies on the family and the dad and what is expected. I mean, I know for me, like, I tend to stay busy volunteering at the school and doing things around the house, and it basically being my wife's personal assistant while she's doing her thing for work and stuff. And I think other dads, you get ones that have multiple kids, and it's like, what am I doing? I'm at home doing laundry and trying to clean the house so that they can come home and wreck it, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's exactly right. I mean, I only had the one son, and he was spending part of the time at his mother's too. So, it was, and she was good about, getting him to tennis or getting him to soccer as well. So it was no longer by necessity. But those first 4 or 5 years that he was actually up to about kindergarten or second grade, it really was. Yeah. Like, I mean, you guys have been there. You are the one taking care of the kid, which is
Danny and I are right there now.
Yeah, right.
That's us right now.
Right now. Yeah. And if you have,
I was just saying, I'm going pretty good though. All of my kids are in school, so there is. It's really funny though, because the thought of, well, what are you going to do with all your time? And I don't have anybody that's a stay-at-home parent that even would do anything less than roll their eyes at that question. They definitely wouldn't ask that question, because the same thing I've been doing, but just. I have a little more time during the day, maybe, because all the stuff going, especially because the way, and Brock's life is this way too, for our family. And I don't feel any pride in this, but I should. And I want to feel pride in it, but it just isn't there yet. But we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for me. If there wasn't somebody here taking care of all of these things. And it continues now, because if I went to work now, one of the kids gets sick, or like tomorrow we have an e-learning day, and it's just because let's just have an e-learning day. And I mean, there's a reason there's testing this week, and they wanted to give the kids a break. And I'm like, but how do you do it if you have two parents working? We're very fortunate. We've been able to do this. It has been a sacrifice, and it's, the value that an at-home parent brings to the relationship and to the family is, it's almost I don't think you could put a number on it really. There's no dollar amount that would fit.
I saw a tweet actually today from a local news station that said, how would you feel if the schools cut to 4 days a week? And that kind of thing, would that help out, or would that be bad? I'm like, no, it's not going to help out, because employers are not willing to cut down to 4 days a week. And unless every employer agrees to that, it's going to be complete and utter chaos. And then on top
Yeah.
of it too, like we already have one of the craziest childcare crises in this country. So those things weigh out the whole idea of this dream world of a 4-day school day. It just is impossible.
Yeah. Currently, it isn't viable at all, I think.
Yeah. We would have to have just a massive do-over of the American mindset. That ain't never going to happen.
No.
You know, because it would have to be 4 days of school. It would have to be 4 days of work. You know, if you're, I'm drawing a blank, Don Hudson, you know, who is a terrific guy. You know, his wife is an ER doc, and I don't know what their schedule is like, but I have a buddy who's an ER doc, and they work they work 3/12s, I think.
They work insane hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
David McMillan, who was at Home Dad Con, we talk about him pretty much a lot on this show because he's a good friend of mine here in town. His wife's an ER doctor, and I know scheduling things with him before I even say, hey, do you want to go do this? I'm like, what is your wife's schedule like? What days does she have off? Because those are the days I know that I can be like, hey, we can go do these things without having to worry about juggling the kids if I want this time with him.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think any of our employers are willing to swap to a 4-day 9-10 hour. And that's the crazy thing. How did we decide that 40 hours a week was the optimum time frame for getting shit done?
Right.
Right. No kidding.
Where the frick did that come from? You know, I mean, I essentially work kind of in a way like 2 or 3 jobs. And granted, I'm my own.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm kind of my own boss now that I'm no longer teaching. But, you know, I get a crap ton of stuff done in 6 hours. Of course, I don't have kids, you know, my son, you know, and my wife is doing her thing. So, but I get an awful lot done in 6 hours a day. And probably in terms of like productivity that I can show you, at more than I did when I was teaching, which was, you know, an 8 or 9 hour day. Because, you know, the only people who think teachers only work from bell to bell are the ones who have never been around teachers.
Right. Oh, I get the same thing when I was a youth minister. It was like, oh, you only work when you're at the church. I'm like, oh, you're so funny. Like, especially like, oh, you're a part-time minister, a part-time pastor. Like that title does not fit.
Right.
Which means I actually do other stuff too. That's all that means. It doesn't mean it's like, oh, it's only an hour a day.
Right. Well, I mean, we had a professor at our school who taught preaching, and I remember him vividly telling us like he lived across the parking lot from the church that he preached at, and the people at the church would be like, oh, you're only here 1 day a week. And they're like, why do you think that? And it's like, oh, because we only see your car in the parking lot by the door on Sundays. And the rest of the time it's at your house. And he's like, that's because I walk across the parking lot. And like he started having to park his car by the door of the church. And then like he's walking from the church to the house like he normally is. But it's like now it looks like he's there all the time.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave my car here. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like your kids. Your kids, I don't know about for you guys, but my kids don't think I even exist from the time they leave to the time they get home. I'm just like in stasis. You know, I don't do anything. I just wait for them to come home. And I'm like, no way. Because one of them asked me this, well, wait, what do you do when we leave? And I'm like, well, okay, who cooks, who cleans, who does the laundry? And then I go to the why, and I've got a million things that I do.
You need to set a GoPro up in a place where you can like capture it all in one day.
I like that idea a lot.
Show it all.
I like that idea.
It's just like show me like, here, you like watching YouTube? Watch this.
Yeah, this is me all day. And well, like when you get an opportunity with one of your kids to have them with you and they're not sick, you know, and so that you could take them through your day. And every time my kids have dragged by 11 o'clock.
Yeah, they're done.
Like, Dad, can we stop? And I'm like, no, I gotta go. I got a million things to do before everyone comes home and the other million things show up. You know,
see this list?
Yeah.
All of these things have to be done.
Right.
No kidding.
And we were talking earlier.
Here's what you call the live stream, Danny Cam.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like with laundry, we were talking about that earlier. And my second wife actually said this to me a long time ago. She said, you have to understand laundry is a journey. not a destination.
Well, that's the truth.
You don't get finished with laundry. And I went, I don't like that at all. And she's like, well, yeah, you don't like it because it's true. Yeah. And that's like today, I think Brock, you spent like the last, what, 37 hours doing laundry, I think.
I've been doing laundry all day.
Like.
Yeah. From the moment that I dropped the kids off, came home and had breakfast. After that, boom, I've been doing laundry, folding it, washing it, hanging it up. I've actually was putting laundry away before I jumped on the mic tonight. So and there's still another basket out there waiting for me to be
waiting
folded.
for you.
So, it's the, as it was stated in the old podcast, the Dad Pod, which was a stay-at-home podcast a while ago. Laundry is the unbeatable boss. Because we all wear laundry. So even though we're like, yeah, I'm done, it's like, crap, I've got clothes on that's going to come off.
Yeah, right. He's dirty already.
When Aaron was about, I was going to say, when Aaron was like 12 or 13, he was juggling soccer and tennis. He ended up being like a full-time, he played tennis in college. And so he became, around 8th grade, a full-time tennis player. But like, I think it was about 7th grade, he was juggling soccer and he was juggling tennis. And he was juggling school because he got good grades because he was stubborn and smart. And that's a recipe for disaster in a pre-teenager. And he didn't have the right socks, I think it was, or shorts for one sport or the other. And he started pissing and moaning. And Kath and I looked at each other and like, come here, Junior, let's introduce you to Mr. Washer and Mr. Dryer. And from that time on, when he was like, I think he was in 8th grade, he was responsible for all his own laundry. Mm-hmm. And that way we never had to hear a complaint again about, well, I wear these socks for tennis. I like these other ones. Like, not my problem, man.
Right. Yeah. There it is. Fix it. There's your answer. You don't have to rely on me anymore. That's no problem.
Right.
Yeah. I tell you, the sooner that you can make your kids self-sufficient, just the better it is all around, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because then they're ready also for the real world as well.
Bingo. And I find that it always helps them that they know this is what they're responsible for. And they just have a certain depth of understanding that you can't get any other way, that this is a hard thing that I have to do every day. I'm even like, my kids love to read, right? Read all the time, but they're required to read by the school and by their teachers. They write it and they log it in. It's 20 minutes and all that. And I'm like, this isn't a hardship on you. Just sit down and read. And they're like, I don't want this. So I'm like, no. This is one of those daily grind things that you're going to do for the rest of your life. Maybe not reading, but whatever it's going to be, this is a daily thing that you're just going to have to do.
Right.
Suck it up and finish it. And then it's 20 minutes, man. You can read for 20 minutes without blinking. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this is right. This is not complicated stuff.
This is not that big a deal.
Yeah. I can't keep books out of my kids' hands. So I don't feel your pain in that at all, Danny, because my kid is the other way. It's like, I have to try to rip the book out of his hands. And at night I'm like, it's night, go to sleep. And he's like, but I got to finish this chapter. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you can find out how the Viking or the dragon kills XYZ thing the next day.
Yeah. My kids only have a problem with it because it's required.
Right.
That's just because there's a list saying you have to do this. Otherwise, they're like, well, what's really funny too is they read books that are too much above their level. They still understand them. They have a good, mental acuity. I will say, I get that from my wife, having the ability to read books that are a little bit further along. So what happens, unfortunately, is their teachers are like, oh, well, you're supposed to read this many books a month. And this is how we know. And your son hasn't even read one book. And I'm like, well, but he's reading this. It's actually, Brock, I think we talked about it previous about the immune book.
Oh, yes.
But it's amazing. And I'm like, but this is thick science stuff that he's reading. And he's not going to finish that in a week, a month. He'll definitely do in 6 months or a year, but he can't give you a book report every week unless you want a chapter to chapter report. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
My son's 9 and he's reading A Brief History of Time. Cut him some freaking slack here, lady.
Nice.
Well, the book that Danny's talking about specifically, the guy who wrote that book, he has all these awesome like science videos on YouTube that my kids love. Like I'd have to look for it. Honest, I'll tell. Well, I have to tell you afterwards.
I'm just curious because I used to recommend Veritasium, and there was one other guy that was really good too, and I'm drawing a blank on his name.
This guy jumps into everything from like deep sea to deep space to are there aliens? I mean, he gets into all kinds of stuff, but he wrote this book on biology.
I hear a kid.
That's his kid. But it's all good. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, he introduced me to it, and then I pulled it up on YouTube, and like my kids will actually request it as like that's what they want to watch on YouTube. And
That's awesome.
they're all these fun little like maybe 15-minute videos, and they're very colorful and articulate. And my kids love documentaries anyways, and so this is like mini documentaries the whole way through. Did you find it?
I had to look it up because
I knew you were. I saw you like
because I can't remember this. It's
for
Philip Detmer. Philip Detmer is the name of the author, and he wrote Immune, which is the book that my son is reading. But the founder of, and this again, Kurzgesagt, SAGT.
Yeah, it's like German or
I don't
something.
know. Yeah. One of the largest channels on YouTube, though, and it is just. I mean, and David, you said you're a science nerd. I am absolutely. My kids all just love it, and we can sit around and watch. And the thing about YouTube, again, you can spend too much time. You can find things that are bad for you, basically, but it's a tool.
Yeah,
like any other tool, and it's how you use it. And we do stuff like this, and my kids are sitting there like. He's talking to his science teacher last year about building a Dyson sphere.
Right? Get out.
Yeah, right. And I'm like,
yeah.
Where the hell did he get that?
I didn't even know at the time what a Dyson sphere was. And I'm a fairly prolific reader, and I'm a pretty big geek, but he got it from the Avengers movie. And I think,
that's in
there. Yeah, where Thor is standing, basically holding open the portal to a Dyson sphere, and he's getting all the power of the star. And my son was like, Dad, that's what I want to do. When I'm going to go to MIT, and then I'm going to be an astronaut somehow. And then I'm going to go to space and build a Dyson sphere around our sun. And it's just it. And that's it. And there's no, I might do this. I don't know if I could. It's just, no, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I'm like, man, that's awesome kid you are, but man, go for it.
Very cool.
But it's because of channels like that was the point. It's because of channels like Kurzgesagt. I'm going to butcher that name forever. But Philip Detmer being so making science and making facts and making learning so inviting, just to bring it to you and say, well, this is why you should be excited about Dyson spheres.
It's very down to earth science teaching too, which is awesome part. It's not over your head. And you're like, oh, like, okay, this makes sense. Like it's so elementary. I mean, for a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old to sit down and be like, I want to watch this and like just take it all in is amazing to me.
And one of the cool things, bringing it back to the at-home dad thing, especially if you're a homeschooling at-home dad, if you can figure out a way to make science real and applied for your kids, they will fall in love with it forever, which is one of the things I did with my high school science kids, because we've all had science teachers that just, yes, they knew their stuff and they could manipulate the numbers and they could make everything work out in the end, but there was no spark there that anything that they were doing was interesting. It was just, and I've had some math teachers like that too, where you're like, wow, this is like, oh, hi, we're talking about some science stuff.
Everybody's getting interrupted tonight.
Yeah. And if you can get the kid intrigued in it, you got lifelong learners. And the best way to do it is in the kitchen.
Yes.
Over years and years of teaching high school sciences, if you can't figure out a way to make what's going on in the kitchen of the house, which is the coolest room in the house, apply to whatever science you're teaching, whether it's zoology or chemistry or physics or whatever, you're doing it wrong. That's all there is to it. You're doing it wrong, because what is cooking? But it's applied physics, applied chemistry, I mean, and
mathematics too.
Yeah, exactly right.
The number of times that I remember telling them I need a quarter cup, and they just think of that as a word, like this is a description of a thing. I'm like, no, think about it. It is 1/4 of a cup. It's a full cup, so it's 1/4 of that. And you just see like the light bulb comes on and their brain just explodes. Like 4 quarters and $1, Dad. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. It's all around you. Good job. Here's fractions.
That's right.
The light bulb pops on.
It does. Yeah.
Have a brownie.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Let's make some cookies.
Yeah. But even now, my kids they know like what is it? Baking soda and vinegar, right?
Oh yeah.
To make the volcanoes, and we have not made a volcano, but there are a lot of things that are cleaning suggestions or recipes that we'll listen to or talk, hear about, and they'll be like, wait, they want you to put baking soda and vinegar down your sink? Dad, these guys are trolling you. That's not going to do what you, that's going to just explode, Dad. Come on. I'm like, no, you got to look at how they're doing it and the amounts. We're not going to just dump it in there until it blows up, you know?
Yeah, right. No
but
kidding.
they know that only because, again, like you said, we've looked at it in the kitchen. We've spent time together looking, dynamically learning what these things mean, which is a huge part.
I have to take a break here for a half a second because I thought I had a full charge on my laptop and my screen started to go dim and it's telling me, and my charger's right here. So I just got to plug it in. I don't know if you edit this out or not.
I do. I do. Yeah.
Okay.
We're leaving this in though. We're leaving this in.
Staying in. I don't care, man. We're going to tell the true story of what happened while interviewing David
Stanley. It really was. Do you want to stop the recording and come back
okay.
on?
I can cut it back. It's fine. I mean, my wife's already walked in on the podcast and she's gonna get it here in a minute. So,
I mean, I literally, I tell all of them, no, I'm doing a podcast and they all know it. And I've gotten, no lie, I've gotten 4 text messages.
Oh my God.
4 text messages from my 15-year-old wanting me to go take him to get Taco Bell. I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I mean, okay, I do kind of want Taco Bell, but I'm not going to do it.
Is it like the commercial? You hear the bong and you're like, I'm done.
And it's Taco Bell. You can't go wrong with that. But we've already had dinner. I made sure you ate.
Wait, it's Taco Tuesday. I thought you already had tacos.
Yeah.
We had tacos. Check my Instagram. I posted the picture already.
There you go. Got to get one.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, we're going to get back on track a little bit here. So, so here's what I'm curious about. You have really just sort of gone after everything when it comes to like writing and, you know, with your sonnets, which I've gotten to hear a couple of them in person and they're beautiful. I think the one that I got to hear, the last one I got to hear was, I believe it was about your dad. And I had followed the story of your dad because you had been posting it online a little bit as well.
Yep.
But then you came and actually like read a sonnet, which put us all in tears in the room there at Dad too.
One of my proudest moments, quite frankly.
You had us all in tears, man.
Including myself. I mean, my dad had only died like 2 weeks earlier.
Right.
And so that was really raw stuff. And it was a life-changing moment for me. I mean, I say that I kind of smile on my face now because I can celebrate my dad, 3 years later because he had such a great life. But to know that something that you write has that kind of effect on somebody. I mean, there were 4 people in that room.
In a room full of people that like supported you though. Like that, you knew that too. That's the great part. Incredible.
It was just, and it literally life-changing because all of a sudden I realized, this sonnet stuff, people are interested in what I have to say about the world when I do it in this very particular form. Yeah. And they still are. I mean, I'm like 175 sonnets in over the last couple of years since you and I first met down in San Antonio.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one thing that I've been intrigued just by like following you and listening to that. Now, the other thing is that you've got some books that you've written. Now, one I could not find. I swear you wrote this book, and maybe I'm just imagining this. Did you write a book that involves something with like Jim Crow or?
Yeah. It's called From Jim Crow to CEO, the Willie Artist Story. It is available on Amazon.
Okay. It wasn't popping up for me. And that's why I was like, where is that? I know he wrote that.
Yeah, I did. In fact, I'm having lunch with Willie on Thursday. He's still alive and kicking. Nice. He's hanging in. He's in kidney failure, as a lot of 86-year-old men are. Women too, of course. But Willie was born in 1935 in Memphis, in the Jim Crow South.
Wow.
And ended up through as people do, first in Chicago, where he fell in love with the blues, and got to see all of the great blues players like Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy and Albert King. In fact, growing up, his older brother was B.B. King's piano player.
Ooh. Oh, wow.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
talk about brush with fame, man.
No kidding.
Yeah, and Willie was like 14, and you know how rock and rollers have always liked to party. And BB had this big pink Cadillac, and this was back in the 40s. Well, he didn't have a driver's license yet. He wasn't even 16 yet. And his brother would take him would have him drive to their gigs during the week because they wouldn't let him drink. And they would all be partying. There'd be girls in the back seat, doing the thing that rock and roll stars do. And, Willie Artist, don't turn your ass around.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And Willie became he got involved in the packaging business, which, if you know anything at all about industry, major corporations don't box up and ship out their own stuff. They don't handle that because that's not what they do. That's not their expertise. And Willie became quite expert in the packaging industry, worked his way up from making boxes literally on the floor to owning the second largest packaging company, or the second largest corporation in the city of Flint after General Motors, the largest minority owned business, doing business with General Motors in the United States. He became extremely wealthy, but more importantly, he's giving away just a shit ton of money. He's funding scholarships and foundations, and because he recognizes that he had a great life and a lot of things went right for him, so he's paying it back. And he was on Obama's Minority Business Council, and I mean, literally there's pictures all over his home. I've been lucky enough to be to his house a bunch of times. I only live like a half hour from him, and there's a picture of President Obama with his arm around Veronica, his wife, who is a lovely woman. So kudos for Barack to choosing to put his arm around Veronica.
Good choice.
Yeah, right. And he was there. If you ever saw the Christmas at the White House thing where Smokey Robinson and all those great Motown stars were there.
Yeah.
Well, Willie is the tall black man sitting in the second row who, when he stands up, people are doing this behind him because
he's blocking everybody's view.
Yeah, because they were all standing up, but Willie's a big guy and nobody could see around him.
So that book, is that basically a memoir or biography of his life then?
Right. Willie put together about a 30,000 word manuscript of things that kind of like quickly came to his mind. And through a mutual friend who had read my melanoma book, that was the first book I wrote, they put us in touch. And Willie and I hit it off like right from the get-go because I bought him coffee at a local coffee shop. And this guy, I mean, this right?
Just out of the blue, like, hey man, I got your coffee.
Well, we set up the meeting and I said, here, let me go get your coffee for you. And I bought his coffee. And, he's worth millions and millions and I'm worth thousands and thousands.
Right. Yeah.
But I popped for the coffee. And so from there on out, we sat down once a month for about a year and a half, sometimes more than that, because that doesn't take into account all our phone conversations and whatever. But we sat down for at least, it'd be like a 2-3 hour meeting once a month, and then a couple times, like I said, on the phone. And Willie would tell me stories. And he has a phenomenal memory, and his memory is chronological. So it was easy. It was relatively easy for me to make sure all the things were in the right order as they occurred. And I'll give you, for instance, Willie was 13 when Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Right? 1947, he was born 35. He was 12 or 13. Willie came up with like 2 paragraphs in his memoir of what that meant. It's a whole chapter by the time I got done with it, because I kind of grew up in the north end of Flint with a lot of African-American friends. And I knew from talking to their dads how big a deal it was when Jackie did this. He was their guy. Everybody became a Dodgers fan.
Right.
When Jackie, every black man in America was a Dodger fan. I will say that without any question. Even if you were a Willie Mays fan and you worshiped the Giants, you were a Jackie fan because he did it first. And so to hear some of like the stories of preachers in Memphis preaching on Sunday about Jackie and something that happened in a game a couple days before, in the way, related to a Bible theme of what Jackie was doing. It was
probably a lot of David and Goliath.
Well, and a lot of turn the other cheek, and a lot of, be strong, but you don't have to, I mean, because, Jackie was told by Branch Rickey, the guy who signed him, I need somebody who's strong enough not to fight back because you can't win this battle.
That's what I loved about the movie 1942 or was it 42? 42. Yeah, 42, that was a great movie. So there's a lot of good stuff in there for sure.
Please buy that book. And I don't make very much money off of it because it's a Kindle. But the story, I likened it on another podcast that I did to the stories that we have of the Holocaust survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a Jew, so I can kind of liken those two to each other because those people, there's not many of them left. And when you have the opportunity to hear the words of somebody who survived the death camps and made it out of the camps and told their story and is letting the world know, even when they're 95, 100 years old, you got to listen to them. And those same people who were born, in Jim Crow, when their great grandparents, or maybe their grandparents, I'd have to go back and check the timeline, were slaves.
Yeah.
I think I know great grandparents. I'm not sure if his grandparents were or not. We have to keep those stories alive. And Willie remembered so many of those stories of like cops dragging his brother down the street, handcuffed and ankle bracelets, whatever, and dragging him up the steps, boom, 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 throwing him in the living room, standing on him in his parents' living room and saying, we caught him trying to break into an ice cream shop down the street, which was a complete and total lie. It was just cops who wanted to beat the crap out of some black kid in Memphis in, 1944.
Jeez.
We have to.
What's even crazier is that kind of thing is still going on to this day.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So it's on Amazon, and I'm
gonna have to get it, man, because it sounds really good. And like I said, I've heard you speak a little bit about it, but I like history books, and
it's history.
It's definitely something that I'm gonna have to grab up, and we'll make sure to put a link in the description too for others to be able to purchase it as well. Along with that, everybody gets to get a chance too, if they depending on what books they listen to. You've done like over 30 audiobooks.
Yeah. I think I'm at 40. Actually, I think I'm at 41 now.
41.
I've narrated 41 audiobooks.
That's awesome.
I'm involved with a company right now. It's the company that actually published my melanoma memoir called Melanoma. It Started with the Freckle. And if you've ever had any kind of chronic disease or any kind of near tragedy in your life like that, it doesn't matter what it was. If you had skin cancer, like metastatic melanoma is a form of skin cancer. If you had, brain tumors, if you had pulmonary embolisms, which I also had, if you have if you've had colon cancer, any of those things where the fear of dying, ahead of schedule, so to speak. That's really what the book is about. I mean, yes, it's a lot about melanoma, but it's really about all the terror and all the anxiety and all the life affirmation stuff that comes along with it too. And it's called Melanoma. It Started with the Freckle. And the company that published that book, they liked my audiobook narration of it. And so now I do all of their narrations for them. And we're doing a series of great books. So if you're a Stoic and you like Epictetus, or the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, it's called books. What's the big idea? Books that matter. And so we're doing new translations and new explications of these old classics. We've done several. We've done Credo. We've done a couple different Plato books. And also they do some fun stuff too. He's big into bicycle racing, as I am.
Yeah.
And so I do all of his audiobook narrations for all of the bicycle books that he has published as well. So it's really a cool relationship that we have with him.
That's really neat. A buddy of mine from the Bible study that I'm in dropped off a book to me because I've been restoring a motorcycle.
Nice.
And he was like, have you ever heard of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? And I'm like, no, I haven't, but it sounds very intriguing. And so he was like, I have a copy. He's like, I got it at half price books. He's like, I'll bring it over to you and you can read through it. And I've only gotten in maybe about a chapter of it. And I'm just like, this is very interesting. I think I'm going to enjoy it.
It was written in the late 60s. It was published in the early 70s. I read it so many times when I was like a senior in high school and then freshman, sophomore year in college. The cover literally came off and I'm on my second copy of it. Wait till you get to the section. And I'm not really giving anything away here because he has a friend who has this BMW, very snazzy bike for that time. And he's very down to earth. He's a very down-to-earth guy, Robert Persick. And the guy's handlebars are slipping on the BMW. And he says, well, I can fix that. He says, you just need a little shim stock in there. He said, give me that can of Coke and we'll snip up. He's like, what are you talking about? He says, oh, no, pop cans, they're perfect shim stock. They're soft enough that the little knurls will grab onto it. He
Right.
said it'll be perfect. He says, "Oh no, I got to take it over to the BMW dealer." And he's like, "So you can spend $100 for BMW certified shim stocks? I can fix it for you right now."
Or do the same thing.
I'm not
Just
going to do that. Yeah,
He's gonna charge you $100 for a Coke can.
right. And I remember reading that. I'm going, "That's absolutely perfect." That is like exactly the issue.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, people are like, oh, I got to go take it here. It's like, no, you can fix it yourself. It's not that hard. So, but yeah. Well, man, I feel like we could talk forever, David, honestly.
Yeah, we're pretty good at that, the three of us.
We might
I
have
was
to
going to say, I think we could, in fact, and just keep going until our families are suddenly like, what are you doing? It's midnight.
Yeah, we probably could. Yeah. Except for I'd start having people start blowing up my phone for the dad lounge, being like, is that going to open anytime soon? I do the dad, because I do the dad
It's
lounge
tonight, isn't it?
I do that on Monday and Tuesday nights. Yeah. So
I forgot about that.
but no, I mean, you're in so many places. Like it's going to be real fun putting in the description or in the description box, like all the different ways that you're doing things. Cause you're involved with like fathering together, where you're like an advisor basically, right?
I'm a board member. Yeah.
A board member. Yeah.
I am. Yeah. I'm one of the original board members, Christopher Lewis. And he came to me and said, this dads with daughters thing's blowing up. We could use a little help with that. I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? He says, well, you've been around for a long time. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. Next thing I know, they put together this thing called Fathering Together with Brian Anderson as the chief operating officer. And
Brian was at Home Dad Con too.
Yeah.
And I like Brian a lot.
Brian's a really nice guy. He's dryly hilarious.
He is. It's amazing too, because you don't expect it when you're talking to him. Then he'll just hit you with the zinger, and you're sitting there like, can I laugh? We're on an official call. Am I allowed to bust out laughing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, and so that's kind of. And they said, well, we'd like you on the board. I'm like, okay. And it's a very interesting board because we have a guy from Oman on there. We have a fellow from Kenya who lives in London now. We've got a couple women that are involved in there because it's fathering together. It's not just the fathers fathering together, but it's families fathering together. So we really wanted to make sure that we had representation from we don't have a non-binary member at the moment. We don't have a gay or lesbian member, but when we sent out the word for that we were looking for some new board members, that we didn't see them come through in the search. But just as an official aside, next time Fathering Together is looking for board members, please, those are voices we want to hear.
Yeah, I'm sure that eventually you'll be getting them. Like you guys seem to be doing a lot, so
we're trying. We now have chapters in Malawi and the Philippines and Nigeria. Yeah, they came to us. They found us online. The miracle of social media. And they wanted support in these very patriarchal countries for being hands-on dads like we are with the Home Dad Network.
Yeah.
Because that's all of us are trying to support each other. It's that rising tide lifts all boats things.
Definitely.
Yes. And so none of us are in competition with the other for dollars or for numbers or for butts and seats. Well, I think at the end of the day, all of us who are working in this fathering space are just interested in dads and people who provide quote unquote typical dad kinds of things, right? Because dad is kind of a gendered sort of thing, and there are plenty of people out there that provide that sort of.
Well, speaking of butts and seats, I'm hoping that we get to see your butt in a seat in Phoenix for Home Dad Con this year.
My wife really likes Phoenix, and that might just happen because I'm comfortable flying, I think now. I don't think we're not out of the pandemic yet, but the numbers are certainly trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
And hopefully by Phoenix. And Kath said that if I am interested in going to Phoenix, I am interested in her coming along.
That's great. I'd love to meet her. I'd love to meet her. You talk about her all the time, so it'd be great to meet her.
And she's fun. She's just I don't want to say she's a joy to be around, because there's this that word is loaded, isn't it?
Wives can be a joy to be around, but not all the time. I get it.
Right. Yeah. But she's very good at poking holes in my balloon, and trust me, I need a lot of that because I'm involved in a lot of different stuff, and I can't really lie. Most of it is reasonably successful. People respond positively to it because I'm not full of shit. I think that's like 90% of it is just telling the truth and being able to laugh at yourself. But sometimes you get a little full of yourself when that happens. And Kath is really good at like going, you're not that. Trust me, I've seen you in the morning.
That is
that.
Definitely one area where wives or spouses in general are the perfect partner for you when they keep you in check, keep you grounded.
Best balance.
Yep. When you were having that nightmare 3 weeks ago and you were screaming about the frogs crawling all over you, I listened.
Yep.
True story.
Yep.
And I sat down on the edge of the bed and I calmed you down. And okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely don't get too big for your britches.
Right.
No. Mm-mm.
Well, I honestly, like, we're gonna have you back on again because, like I said, I think we can continue to talk about all kinds of stuff and just share stories and just have a good time. Like, and that's the thing that I love about this podcast is it's very informal and we do that a lot.
I do have a really good mommy mafia story that I didn't even get to when Aaron was. Do we have time?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's tell it.
And then maybe we can, cut some other stuff out. So anyway, Aaron was like 3. And we spent the whole winter playing tennis in the basement with a racquetball racket because he saw some tennis on TV and he thought this was like the coolest thing that he had ever seen. And so I got a racquetball racket out for him and a racquetball, and I would bounce the racquetball against the wall and he would smack it with the racquetball. And at first I would kind of like guide his hand so he would make contact, but he is far better at racket sports than I ever was. And he figured it out right away. So here we are. I'm an at-home dad. It's like 99 degrees out. We're at the tennis club, swimming tennis club up the street. And Aaron and I are sitting at the little kiddie pool. And he's like, I want to go hit. And I'm like, it's freaking noon. And we're sunscreened up. We got hats on. I mean, it's all, and he's like, nope, got to go hit. And so he drags me out on the tennis court. And we used to play crosswise with the center service line as the net. So you just had like a line there and 2 boxes. So it works better for little kids. And so I'm out there and we're hitting the ball back and forth. And he's just giggling because he had just figured out how to move me around. Like if I hit it like this, Dad's got to run over there. If I hit it like that, Dad's got to run over there. Right? So he's, And so a couple of the moms are standing in the shade under there and they're like, wow, look at that little kid. He's really good. But then a couple of the other mean girls, the queen bees, as they call them.
Yep.
I can't believe that man is out there with his son hitting tennis balls. Where is that child's mother? And they're like going on and on. And the other 2 moms who are saying, oh, it's pretty good. They're like cowed, by these mean girls. Of course. Yeah. And they're just like, I'm like, and finally, after listening to this for like 5 minutes, I walked over. I said, it was his idea. We got water. We got hats. We got sunscreen. He dragged me out here and it's okay because we're not going to be out here all that much longer. In about 10 minutes, we're going to be in the pool. If y'all want to come watch me, with my son in the pool, if you're that interested in keeping tabs of me, after that, we're going to stop at Kroger on the way home to pick up the groceries. But thanks. I know how to take care of my child.
Uh-huh.
And they just went, which was the nicest way I could think of in the presence of all these children who are running around here, to not just go totally ballistic at these just incredible bitchy women.
Yep.
I was stepping on their toes, clearly.
Yeah, and there's a huge thing, and I think we've all heard of like the mommy wars and things like that. There's a huge difference between how dads treat each other and talk about their parenting and how moms do it. It seems to me it's always like the moms are just trying to, they're like crabs trying to escape a pot of boiling water. One's going, no, you're staying here and us and suffering, kind of thing. And dads are kind of like, oh, cool. How do you do that? Oh, well, can I do it that way? Well, how can I help you? Or, hey, can you help me figure this out? It's much more give and take and acceptance of, okay, you gave your kid brandy on a plane so that they'd sleep the whole trip. Okay. I'm not going to judge you. I don't know that I would do that, but okay, your kid better than I do. Right. And that amount of surprisingly non-arrogant men that are out there just trying to raise their kids, and fine if you raise your kids a little bit different, right. A huge difference.
I think a lot of it, I drew this analogy a few years back. I'm sure you've noticed it. African-American folks, and I've noticed it with men, always greet each other, even if they don't necessarily know each other. If they're in the grocery store, there's a nod. There's hey, I see you. You know,
Mhm.
I get where we are. And I think dads are kind of like that as well.
Oh yeah,
When we
definitely. I'm
see
like that in the
another-
grocery store.
Yeah, when we see another dad with the kids, we're always like, "Hey, Dad, looks good. How you doing?" You know, and it's not like I'm not trying to interject into your space. I'm not trying to
Mhm.
help you be better. Not trying to put you down. I just want to recognize that I see you.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I don't want to draw the analogy that says, you know, what African Americans have gone through at the hands of white people are the same as what dads have gone through at the hands of moms. Because that ain't the
Oh
truth.
God, no. Yeah.
But
No.
it's a similar kind of behavior where you just want to recognize somebody else for who they are and what they're doing.
Right.
Mhm.
It's kind of like seeing your tribe, like, hey, there's another dad with a kid.
I like
and,
that.
and being
Yeah.
able to connect that way. Cause yeah, there's been a lot of times where it's like I've seen dads and you're just like, hey, what's up, man? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
You're doing a good
Yeah.
job. A lot of times I'm in there, like if I'm in the grocery store, like during the day by myself with like one of my shirts that has like some kind of like dad logo on or something like that. And like I'll have a dad with a kid. Like I'm always like, I'll walk up and be like, hey man, how you doing? Everything going okay? Like, you have
Yeah.
a good day? Like
Yep.
just interject with them just for a few seconds, man, and just have a fun little conversation. So
Yeah, just
yeah.
a moment of sanity that you are not alone.
You're
Right,
not alone.
exactly.
We're in the trench. We understand.
That's right.
I see you, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, David, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's
Yeah.
been seriously a lot of fun getting to talk to you. And I guarantee we're going to have you back on again. Danny and I will make sure that takes place because, like I said, there's all kinds of other things to talk to you about. And I think even getting more in depth into what's going on with fathering together is a very intriguing
Yeah, I'm
conversation
interested
in
in
itself.
that. Yeah, definitely.
And so, yeah, we'll get that scheduled for later
Sounds
on.
good. And
Well-
I think we can do some good work together too between Home Dad, National Home Dad Network, and Fathering Together. I think
Oh yeah,
there's,
definitely.
Mhm.
there's a lot of cross-pollination, useful
Yes.
cross-pollination that could take
Mhm.
place there between our two groups for sure. I'm certain of it. I don't know what it would look like, but I know it's there. We
Oh
just
yeah,
need to
it's
figure
definitely
that out.
there. So
Well, I'm
Cool,
just going
man.
to
Well,
say
yeah.
it may have been mentioned previously at a board meeting, and it may be mentioned already, or going to be mentioned again already. I know a board member, and he talks a lot. So no, it's me. But yeah, so it's just a matter of it's really like you said, it's just absolutely the same areas that we're working together and just looking to help each other. You know, how can we boost your signal? You know, what can we
Yep.
do to get you, more exposure or more views or whatever it might be that you need so that people know what you're doing because you're doing good stuff.
Yep.
So
definitely, it's
That's
nice to be able
exactly
to
it.
have this time of
this is
fatherhood
so-
of brotherhood.
Indeed. I like that. The brotherhood of fatherhood.
Brotherhood of
Brotherhood of
fatherhood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome line. I like that a lot. Thank you for having me. I mean, I like talking to you guys anyway, and talk like real people, beverages,
Yep.
hanging out. It's very cool that we're able to do this. I love this technology. It's a great time to be alive.
It is.
It
It,
really
definitely
is.
is. Well, hey, cheers to everybody. And we'll talk to y'all next week. Have a good one.
good night, everybody.
I'm a dad, that's what I do.